Well, what's up? Welcome into the UP Power Podcast here with Kevin McNulty. Keegan Cooper is on a much-needed vacation. Hope he enjoys after being at Packers training camp on Monday of this week. Some great stuff from Keegan down there. We'll get to Packers training camp in a second. This version of the podcast, well, we'll be focused a lot on summer baseball. Legion Ball, big state tournament coming to Marquette this weekend. First time since 2021 that the Marquette Blues have hosted this tournament. And later on in the podcast, I'll talk to Mark Pantti, the manager of the Marquette Blues, and how they're getting ready for this tournament. 6 teams coming to Marquette, Gladstone among them, the Gladstone Indians, after winning the Zone 5 championship in Delta County last weekend. It was the Gladstone Indians over the EUP Wood Ducks. It was a great tournament. Now the Marquette Blues did get bounced from that one after being no-hit by Perry LeBlanc of EUP. He had a great outing out there. That was a 2-0 game. There was a lot of good baseball in that tournament. You had Norway going off. Looked like they were going to win the thing for a while before they got knocked out later in the weekend. But Cole and Owen By, a couple of those guys on the Norway team this spring that propelled the Norway Knights all the way to the state championship game in Division 4 this spring. Well, they're still doing it now for their Legion team. They had 6 RBIs against Menominee, an 11-1 win. So that was a good start for Norway this past weekend. But as I mentioned, Gladstone pulls it out over EUP in the end, and it was a 4-0 game. They shut out the Wood Ducks to win the championship. And that Gladstone team, pretty talented, maybe one to keep an eye on when the state tournament gets going in Marquette on Thursday. It should be a great weekend of baseball, and I'll get into it with Coach Mark Pantti. And, man, I'm looking forward to it. Great Legion Ball. Haley Field is ready to go. We discuss later on in this podcast about the changes they have made, improvements to the field over there in Marquette over the past couple of years, really getting ready for tournaments like this one this weekend. It's the last hurrah for Legion baseball in the UP. It's hard to believe we've gotten there, but it is that time. State tournament in Marquette, Legion Ball this weekend. It'll be a lot of great baseball, looking like some great weather too for this weekend. We are looking forward to it. We'll be out there all weekend, Thursday through Saturday, potentially Sunday if they need it. So that's the Legion State Tournament in Marquette. As I mentioned, Mark Pantti, manager of the Marquette Blues, will be on the podcast later on to discuss. But some other things that we need to catch up on that have happened over the past week. Both NMU and Tech making some moves for coaching staffs heading into next season. We're only about 6 weeks away from NMU and Tech football getting underway. Of course, volleyball and soccer as well. And we'll start with soccer with Michigan Tech, because we got to sit down with the new head coach of Michigan Tech soccer, Melissa Kuhar, coming over from Drury University in Springfield, Missouri. She has not been a D2 head coach yet, spending 4 years at Drury, which is also D2. And she's excited to, get to know Houghton, get to know, everyone at Tech, and get going with her team. There doesn't appear to be a ton of turnover from Turk Ozturk's team a year ago. He stepped down in January to pursue other coaching opportunities. But if you remember, Tech was a really solid team in the GLIAC a year ago, really kind of just a step below NMU, which won the regular season championship, won the tournament championship to go on to the NCAA tournament, where they got knocked out by Maryville. So that was NMU. They had an incredible season, winning those 2 championships in the regular season and the tournament. But as I mentioned, Tech was right there with them most of the season, came out on top of one of those games, and they were highly contested games in those rivalry matchups that we watched last fall. So looking forward to seeing what Kuhar can do with this Huskies roster heading into 2024. Gracie Van Langevelde should be in net for the Huskies again this season, and Kuhar really excited. She's in the infancy of her head coaching tenure at Tech, but trying to figure it all out as she gets going into the season. And you can find that story that Keegan Cooper did on UpperMichiganSource.com. Introducing Melissa Kuhar. And then at Tech, Dave Shayak continues to fill out his coaching staff, and he's bringing back another former Wildcat captain in Phil Fox, who played at NMU from 2007 to 2011. 2010, the last time the Cats went to the NCAA tournament. So Phil Fox has that experience. And for the past couple of years, he's been coaching in the NAHL with junior programs. So you have to think those connections with junior programs across the country playing in the NAHL will help with recruiting. Absolutely. So Shayak will have one more spot to fill on his staff before NMU gets going for next season. We'll see if it's an all former NMU staff. Right now, that is the plan that they're going with. The day Dave Shayak was introduced as the head coach, he welcomed Andy Contoys back to Marquette. So those are the three guys on the staff right now. Like I said, he's got one more to go. Maybe it'll be another Northern guy behind the bench, and I tend to think that's a good thing for NMU with all the uncertainty they've had with their roster really since March, and heading in to this next season, trying to fill out, the entire roster, get those numbers, past 25. And from what I understand right now, they're darn close to having a full roster already for next season, which is impressive because we're still in July, less than a month into Shayak's tenure as head coach. So he's been working hard, recruiting, seeing what guys they can still get out of the portal and what guys they can bring over from other leagues to play for the Cats this upcoming season. And Keegan and I really talked about it a lot last week. The CCHA should be pretty wide open once again. We had the news with Augustana coming on full-time member in 2024-25. That's a year earlier than what was planned, but Augustana was really solid against those CCHA teams a year ago, and that's part of the reason why they got elevated to full members right away in 24. And, well, they were 500 against CCHA teams, which would have put them, if you use the point percentage system that's going to be in place for the season, because unfortunately, and I had wished that they would have come to this decision earlier, right after the end of this past season, because then maybe they could have scheduled Augustana with the full schedule. They will have their planned schedule. That's already set in stone, which is only 16 CCHA games. The rest of the league, the 8 other teams, will have 26 games to play. So they're going to have to weigh each game differently for Augustana as opposed to the rest of the league. It won't really affect the 8 other teams, and that, of course, includes NMU, Tech, and Lake State here in the UP. They'll still be playing their 26 conference games, and they'll be ever important, but way more important for the Vikings of Augustana, their 16 conference games will be weighted more, and that's how they'll calculate the percentage, see who moves on and plays in the Mason Cup playoffs in the late winter, and one team will be left out of it. So the 9th place team won't have a chance to compete for an automatic bid to the NCAA tournament. I think that is reason in and of itself to play well in CCHA games right away, because they mean a lot. If you're in 9th place, you're not making the postseason, and that would really sting to have your season end like that and not have an opportunity to compete for that automatic bid. Said to Keegan last week, might be a reason for NMU to say, you know what, we're going to be good enough to make the Mason Cup playoffs and have that goal right away at the beginning of the season. We don't really know what the Wildcats are going to look like. As for the Huskies up in Houghton, we expect more of the same, and it'll be a little bit different under Joe Shawn this year, coming off 3 straight NCAA tournament appearances, which is a great accomplishment, but they want to keep this rolling and eventually win games in the NCAA tournament, which they haven't done the past couple of years. Blake Pietola will be gone. I think that's the big change for the Michigan Tech Huskies. Heading into next season, you don't have that All-American goalie between the pipes, so that will be a change for the Huskies heading into next season, but they're well primed once again if they get off to a better start. If you remember last October, there were very few wins here in the UP between NMU and Tech. They were playing from behind, and the Huskies were able to work that into a Mason Cup championship and take on Boston College in the tournament. I think they would prefer to not have to do that again next year. And as for NMU, it'll be kind of a ragtag group, which I'm excited to cover because there's going to be some talent there. You just have to see how it all comes together in this short amount of time since Dave Shayak was hired, really only the end of June all the way to the beginning of October to get ready for the season. But that's on the horizon here soon. As I mentioned, the news last week was that Phil Fox will be joining Dave Shayak behind the bench for the Wildcats. We'll see how that works out. I mentioned it should help with recruiting quite a bit. So guys that are familiar with Marquette coming to work for Northern. And let's switch gears now. Pretty slow time in pro sports. The Tigers continue to play pretty well out of the All-Star break. They win a 3-game series at Toronto over the weekend. They drop the game on Sunday, so that ends their winning streak. But right back at it on Monday, Tarek Skubal was on the mound. He went 7 innings, gave up 10 hits, but only 1 earned run. And I think that's the sign of a true ace and Cy Young favorite right now in Detroit. Haven't been able to say that for quite some time since Justin Verlander, really, and of course when Max Scherzer was in town as well. But the Tigers have premier pitching once again. Jack Flaherty's been awesome. He'll go later in the series against Cleveland. And they've played really well against the Guardians. And thinking about it right now, Cleveland at the All-Star break had the best record in the American League. And Detroit had taken them down in a series, a couple weeks before the All-Star break. Now on the other side of it, it's a 4-game set in Cleveland. Huge for the Tigers as their postseason odds start to creep up almost to double digits now, that they might have a chance to make a play at the wild card as we move forward. And if they keep getting the pitching at the top end of their rotation, I'm talking Skubal and Flaherty, there's no saying that the Tigers can't make a little push. Still sitting at 4th in the AL Central, but stack those wins against Cleveland and other teams in the Central, and they will continue to move up the wild card standings. It'll be interesting to see if they can make a real push. I think the trade rumors for Skubal and some other guys are probably out the window because they feel like they can maybe not compete the rest of this season if they don't keep winning like they have been, but they have something to build here for the future, which of course has been the goal since they hired A.J. Hinch as the manager. Accumulated all those high-end picks. Spencer Torkelson is not back to Detroit since going down to Toledo. That one not looking great right now. The slugger from Arizona State who they drafted a couple years ago. But then you look at another top 10 pick from a few years ago, Riley Green, and how good he's been at the top of the Tigers order and being an all-star in Texas last week. He's a young talent that the Tigers look like they really hit on. So there's some things to think about as we approach the trade deadline for Detroit, but it won't be a fire sale, that's for sure, with the way this ball club has been playing. And thinking about the Brewers as well, hanging out. They come out of the All-Star break after kind of limping into it with 2 wins at Minnesota, 8 runs each. In each of those games, it was a short little 2-game set there, and then they dropped the opener to the Cubs in Chicago yesterday. But the Brewers, what do they do at the deadline? Do they need to add some pitching? Any depth in the field? Are they going to do any of that? They're a first-place team. They want to compete with the Phillies and the Dodgers as the NL Central champions. If they're able to pull it out, they have a 5.5-game lead over St. Louis. I think they should be able to, finish the season as NL Central champions once again, and would really be a great accomplishment right there. But if you're talking about the Brewers, they've been in the playoffs so many times over the past 10 seasons, and it hasn't amounted to much. So what is going to get them over the hump, get them into a championship series, and give them a chance to go on to the World Series. They haven't been able to reach that threshold, of course, under Craig Counsell in the past, and now this season under Pat Murphy in Milwaukee. But if they keep stacking wins, as I mentioned with the Tigers, they have a good opportunity to be in a good spot, maybe third in the National League when it's all said and done. The Dodgers are playing a lot better, as expected with the roster. Phillies, pretty banged up, but not as banged up as the Atlanta Braves, one of the most talented teams in the National League as well. They're probably a playoff team, but without Ronald Acuna for the rest of the season, without Spencer Strider in their rotation, a couple other guys banged up in their rotation, and now without Ozzie Albies in the middle infield for quite some time with a broken wrist. They have been devastated by injuries, but yet another opportunity and reason for the Brewers to assert themselves right there atop the National League with those teams, like I mentioned, the Phillies and the Dodgers. We'll see how it goes. They should win, these games over the Cubs. Bats were kind of dead on the north side of Chicago Monday night. It was just one home run from Willie Adames that they put on the board, a 3-1 loss. So we'll keep following along with those two baseball teams. Like I said, they've been a lot of fun over the past couple weeks, really all season for the Milwaukee Brewers. Keegan, before he went on vacation, was at day one of Packers training camp on Monday. It was great to have all the fans out there. They do the bike ride from Lambeau out to the practice field, and there was a guy not suited up, not in uniform, not ready to go with the first-team offense, and that was number 10, Jordan Love. Why? Because he's waiting on a new contract. And it's pretty understandable. It's not like Jordan Love is being a diva here. He earned this deal last season after sitting for 3 years. The timeline on him was really crunched. You think about rookie quarterbacks who start in their first season with the team, well, you get 3 years to see them in action on the field. Do you want to pay that guy, give him his second contract and keep him as your quarterback for the long-term future? Packers, the way they do things, which worked out wonderfully with Aaron Rodgers and now appears to be going very well with Jordan Love as well, sitting that guy that you drafted in the first round for a couple of years before you put him out there as the starter. That's what they did before 2023 when Jordan Love got out there and really impressed, especially down the stretch of the season and in that wild card playoff game against the Dallas Cowboys. And they put up 40-plus points, even had a great opportunity to move on to the NFC Championship game against the Detroit Lions, but they fell to San Francisco a year ago. Nonetheless, they're going to pay Jordan Love. Jordan Love deserves to be paid, and it's an understandable thing. While you don't have your generational contract yet, to not suit up for practice and risk any injury. Brian Gutekunst was very out front, talked to the media first thing Monday morning and said we're close, but these big deals, there's a lot of language in the contract, certain terms of the contract that you have to get right and you have to nail down with Jordan Love's agent and his entire camp. So it's going to take probably a few more days, maybe a week before Jordan Love is out there. But Packers haven't even put on pads yet. Their final training camp practice isn't even until August 22nd. They don't open the preseason for a couple of weeks, and even in that first preseason game, there's no chance you would see Jordan Love out there at all. The hope for Packers fans is that this doesn't drag on to be a 2-3 week ordeal. I don't think it will, based on what we heard from Brian Gutekunst. Matt LaFleur didn't seem too concerned about it yesterday as well. You had Sean Clifford, who was with the team as the backup a season ago, and Michael Pratt, a guy they drafted in the 7th round in the draft this spring. They were splitting first-team reps. You don't want to see that once they get into pads, but like I said, all signs point to Jordan Love being out there within the next week or so with a new contract. And that would be a big deal. It would be a big moment for the Packers franchise. They are the model for developing Hall of Fame quarterbacks. You're thinking back to Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers, and now Jordan Love, they hope, turns into a Hall of Fame quarterback. They don't start rookie quarterbacks, so we'll see if at any point this season Sean Clifford has to be out there. He's not a rookie quarterback, but if Michael Pratt gets in, that would be the first time since the 1980s that the Packers would start a rookie under center. I don't think it's going to happen. I think Jordan Love will be out there. Hopefully he stays healthy like he did last season. The other big question the Packers fans have heading into next season, how different is the defense going to be under Jeff Hafley? And again, it echoed around Lambeau Field again, that they're going to be more aggressive. They locked up Kenny Clark, the defensive tackle, who's been awesome, 3-time Pro Bowler. Matt LaFleur had colorful things to say about Kenny Clark, of course, the first time he talked to the media since Clark got that deal. That's a big-time pass rusher in the middle. He will cause problems for offensive lines again this season. So the Packers have him locked up. And then you think about Rashawn Gary, who had great moments last season. One of them Thanksgiving Day when he was, in on Jared Goff pretty much every play in that game on Thanksgiving. Rashawn Gary rushing the passer. But what you keep hearing around the building at Lambeau is the defense will be more aggressive with Jeff Hafley. And I think that will be true. So not something you got a lot from a Joe Barry defense, but as you're heading into next season, the secondary's going to be there with some young guys and some vets as well. You think about Jair Alexander. Hopefully he doesn't make too many headlines off the field and he can focus on football because he's one of the most talented defensive backs in the league. And then Xavier McKinney coming over will make an impact for sure. And see how that unit comes together because, a year ago, the Packers' defense was the problem and probably resulted in their 8 losses last season. In the regular season, they were 9-8 before going on to the playoffs to beat the Dallas Cowboys and then lose the San Francisco 49ers. So the defense will look a little bit different. Packers not as young as they were last year. Still a young team for sure. Might be the youngest still in the NFL, but that group has had some time to mature. Love and the offense, they bring over a new running back, and how is that going to play into it? A veteran running back, and then Christian Watson, being that big time receiver once again. Jaden Reed sat out of the first day of practice with a non-football injury. He won't miss much time, so once they move through this first week of camp, put on the pads eventually, the Packers will look more like the Packers from a year ago, getting ready to open the season in Brazil against the Philadelphia Eagles, which they ended the season on a really sour note last year, but they're still one of the top teams in the NFC. So that'll be a test for the Packers on a Friday night right out of the gates in Sao Paulo, Brazil, the first ever NFL game in South America. That's how the Packers will open 2024. And then you're thinking about the Lions on Saturday. They don't have to worry about much of this contract stuff because this offseason they were shelling out cash to all their guys on offense, that being Jared Goff, got an extension. He'll be around for a while. Amon-Ra St. Brown, one of the top wide receivers. He asserted himself last season as one of those top guys in the NFL. Well, he got paid as well. He'll be around. And then Penei Sewell on the line. He is a huge piece of what Ben Johnson can do with that offense. And on Saturday, we'll see all those guys out there again. And then, of course, the Lions' young defense, the guys they drafted, Terry and Arnold in the first round, a defensive back. Then they go DB again in the second round. So younger defense, hopefully more talented defense. And then the Lions, same story on offense. You'll have Sam Laporta, and hopefully he stays healthy. That was a question down the stretch of the last season after one of the best rookie seasons for a tight end in recent history for Sam Laporta. So that offense will look very similar. Those guys got paid. They should be happy going into training camp. And the defense really is kind of the question mark for the Lions again, because it's a younger group and they're bringing in some new blood. And we'll see how that works as Dan Campbell leads the Lions as the favorite in the NFC North. First time in a very long time that they've been in that position. And we'll see how they handle expectations. Didn't seem to bother them as they kept winning football games a year ago. So that was fun to have Keegan down there in Green Bay on Monday as football season is creeping up on us. A couple weeks' time, we'll have UP high school football out on the practice field to check in with as we get set for football time. But it's all about baseball right now as the calendar still reads July, and this weekend we are very much looking forward to the Legion State Tournament in Marquette at Haley Field, starting on Thursday and going through the weekend. As I mentioned at the top of the show, Mark Pantti, the manager of the Marquette Blues, joins me on the podcast, and here he is to talk about the Legion State Tournament in Marquette this weekend. All right, and it's great to be joined now by Mark Pantti, the head coach of the Marquette Blues, and we're talking baseball today, Mark, because you got a big tournament coming to Marquette, Haley Field, this weekend. It's the Legion State Tournament in Marquette once again. I know you had it there in 2021 and 2015. Why is it a big deal to have this tournament back in Marquette?
Well, this is the culmination for the year for the guys. For all the teams really across the state that play A-ball. They run through zones. Obviously, we're the largest zone in the state of Michigan. Yeah. And, all 8 of our teams were down in Escanaba battling last weekend. With us hosting, we had had our spot kind of locked in, but we'll be joined by Gladstone. It's a combination of going from high school right into Legion and kind of ending, a long stretch of baseball for these guys.
And you guys have had some success in this tournament when you've hosted in the past. I imagine you're trying to recreate some of that this year.
We are going back to Coach Swage's days. 2015 we hosted and they won. 2021 I was part of his staff. We won that year. 22 we went through zones, won that, and lost in Trenton. But having that home field advantage it's nice.
For sure. You guys 16-10 according to Game Changer at this point in the summer. I mean, what's been going well to lead to that record during this season?
So we've got the largest Legion program in the state. Mm-hmm. We have our Nagani guys. We have Superior Central. I've got 3 junior programs this year, which is huge for us in our future. We've had a lot of shuffling going on between the programs or the teams. We've got a very senior staff, a lot of guys back that are in their super senior year this year. I think I lose 8 after this year, but a lot of those are guys that have been in the program for 6 or 7 years when we started rebuilding the program. In our youth, there's a lot of talent there on the team as well. So we're deep at pitching. Our bats are good. Defensively, we're a really sound team, so hopefully we can kind of fire on all cylinders and make it pay off this weekend.
For summer ball teams, when you're playing in these tournaments, 2 games a day, sometimes the next day you're playing 2 games again, how huge is it to have a bunch of arms that can get out there on the mound and be horses on the mound?
It's key because, a tournament like this weekend, you're only allowed 2 appearances, so you really have to manage your pitching staff. We have our Legion guidelines for pitching rules, which are, a little bit tricky to follow, kind of like high school, but having depth at pitching is huge for teams to get through a tournament like this and hopefully win a state championship. Yeah, going from the Marquette season in the spring right into Legion, we've been lucky to have some great weather for you guys a lot of this summer. What have you liked about the competition you've seen from other UP Legion teams? You mentioned Gladstone coming up this weekend for the tournament. How have those programs kind of elevated you guys as well? We played Gladstone. We beat them early on in the summer. They're a well-coached team. They're very similar to us. A lot of senior leadership. We took kind of a different path this year. A lot of the UP teams did. We focused a lot on tournament ball. Right out of the gate when high school got out, we went down to Fond du Lac, then to Waupun, then to Mount Pleasant, then took a little break. then we kind of hit our league stretch over the 4th of July after the alumni game, and we're done. And, settled back into tournament play last weekend and this weekend. So we've seen a handful of teams that are coming up. Hudson's coming up here, Gaylord, Three Oaks, and Breckenridge, as well as Gladstone and Marquette. So we've got some really good notes on those teams, and hopefully it'll be an advantage for us.
Yeah, and seeing those teams earlier in this year, a few of them, correct? And, what does that do for you guys now that, this is the big stage in the state tournament?
Well, it kind of gives us, I guess a comfort feeling that we've seen them. We kind of know, a little bit about them. We've played against them. We know their strengths, our strengths against them. So knowing that we were hosting this year and we're automatically in, that was the route we took to kind of make it a point to see some of these teams early on in the year.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about the format of the tournament, how it's going to work starting on Thursday and leading all the way through the championship on the weekend.
So we have opening ceremonies Thursday morning at Haley at 10 o'clock, and then after that, it's a double elimination format. The 6 teams are already set. Three Oaks and us kind of got that first game by how they were all drawn out. From that point on, it's you lose one, you end up in the loser's bracket. You got a tough road to get to Saturday, but we have seen teams fight through it. So in our position with that kind of first game bye, if we win our first 2 games, we're right into the championship. So that's what we're going to focus on, is kind of the task at hand and getting through those first couple of games.
Yeah, we will see if the host team can advance through the tournament. We mentioned Gladstone. We'll be playing in this tournament as well. It would be good to see you guys on that stage. But, as a coach who coaches both high school and Legion ball, this spring I had a lot of fun covering that Norway team that went all the way to the state championship. Yep. Only the second UP team ever to make it down there. I mean, as a guy who watches so much baseball here in the UP, how have you seen the game grow, and what's great about it right now?
The numbers across the board are huge. I mean, we had Ironwood come back this year. Obviously, Trace and those guys in Norway are in their second year back.
Yep.
EUP, Houghton's doing well. We all kind of work together to kind of keep that transition from high school to Legion going. In between the fences, we may go to war at times with each other, but the Legion coaching community as a whole, we're a very tight-knit group, and we do what we can for each other to keep these teams and games going. So it's nice to see where we're at, versus 7 years ago when we only had a handful of teams left, and here we are. We have 18 teams across the UP. That's big for us. That's huge. That's juniors and seniors, so it's good to see.
Yeah, it makes it easy on us with a lot of games going on every night of the week over the summer. And your son, Nick, going on to play at Lakeland University, I know you're super excited for him, but being able to coach him both at Marquette and with the Blues, what's been fun about that?
Well, it's it's not just him. We've got a group of guys that have been together all the way through Little League that I look at as sons, and we've all had our fair share of fights and agitation. But for Nick, I mean, he's one of the guys that baseball has been his sport, and he's put the time in. I'm excited for him to get away from me and be able to be coached by somebody else, and same tone next year. I'm looking forward to being able to coach not my son.
I get it. Well, this weekend should be tons of fun. What's your favorite part about the state tournament every year?
Just the Americanism. I mean, we've come together as a board. Our Post 44, they're wonderful sponsor to have backing us. Mike Nemitz, Mike Trickey, those guys have been around forever, and they've been through quite a few of these. They have the board kind of firing on all cylinders right now. But just from opening ceremonies on, it's about Americanism and Legion baseball and what the veterans have done to for us and created opportunities like American Legion baseball, and it's kind of our way to be able to pay some of that back and keep the future bright for baseball up here. Yeah,
they're great sponsors, great support you guys get, not only in Marquette but all the Legion programs across the UP. When you're constructing a lineup, what are you going for when you get into these big tournaments? I imagine, having played almost 30 games at this point, you've been able to manage that pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're going to set our pitchers up with a really good defense behind them. Looking through the lineup, we kind of are hoping that we have our best hitters on the field and everybody firing on all cylinders, mixed in with some speed and kind of the ability to play all aspects of the game in case we get into a scenario where I have to go into small ball or just let the guys rope and do their thing.
Yeah. And you think about the other programs, Junior Reds and the Reds and the White Diamonds that you guys have coming up. The White Diamonds won a big tournament a couple of weeks ago. What excites you about the future of the Marquette Legion program?
Well, a few years back when Negaunee had their own program, it kind of went away. We reached out and bringing those guys in. We play high school against each other. Obviously, we're different divisions, but I have a tremendous amount of respect for Coach Lease and Jason Seek, the Negaunee's high school program. We have a lot of the same values. A lot of these guys want to keep playing summer ball. They're our next door neighbors, so with that fit, Coach Lease went against Coach Gleason there in the junior semis and kind of toppled the Reds, who were defending champions last year. It's a good group of kids. They mesh well with the program. Even this weekend, the Junior Reds and then the White Diamonds went down to Menominee for a 15U tournament, and those were the two teams. I believe they were in the championship game against each other, semifinals against each other, and Coach Lease brought his boys through and won another one this weekend. So there's a lot of talent there coming up, and there's a lot of talent coming off the Reds that age out of the Reds and come up to the Blues team next year. So we're in good shape for the next few years.
Yeah, it's cool to watch some of these guys come up through the ranks and eventually play on the Blues team or the equivalent elsewhere. And it's going to be a great time. I remember covering a couple of tournaments there at Haley Field last year, but I know this is a big one. Why should people come out and watch some of this great baseball?
It's going to be great baseball all weekend. We've done a lot of work to the field the last couple of years. 21 when we held the last state tournament here. We've continued with those efforts to rebuild the whole complex. It's probably, I'm going to be a little biased, it's one of the most beautiful parks in the UP. We have a great grounds crew that work pretty hard on it. We work well with the city, but just coming out for kind of that stretch run of baseball and eating some popcorn and hot dogs and stuff. If that's what you're looking forward to, come on down to Haley, and it's going to be a great weekend.
Or late in the game, we might end up with some cheap meats for the fans.
That's correct. Yep. Mike Peterson, I love the guy. He started that a few years ago, and it's caught on. So.
Well, I've caught on to it. You get into the 6th and 7th inning, cheap meats are coming, the hot dogs and burgers off the grill.
It's our biggest rush of the night. So, we've got a lot planned for this weekend. We have a really packed concession stand and menu, and we'll be busy from Thursday right through the last pitch on Saturday. So.
Yeah, and what are some of those improvements that you've made to the field over the year? Because you're right, it is one of the best venues for baseball.
We were supposed to host in 2020, and obviously COVID hit, which gave us a little bit more time to plan for the following year. The field was in rough shape, so we had a couple of contractors come in and donate a ton of time. We took out a small business loan and just kind of got to work. We ripped out the entire infield, we redid the dugouts. The brand new batting cage, dual chamber batting cage that we put in. Mm-hmm. And, we kind of made a promise to our sponsors back in 21 that this wasn't going to be a 1 year and done deal. I think I spend somewhere around 1,500 hours there from April until the end of the year, cutting grass and, weed whacking and, taking care of the small stuff. But this year, obviously, the high school program, they utilize our field too, and we started our lighting project as well. That was the big kick this year. Which we've played a couple games under the lights, and it's been fun. It's been a fun transition. But, we're, as a whole from 21 until now, and keeping that theme that, our sponsors will be proud of what we're doing with their funds that they've helped us out with. If you come down to the field and take a look, you're going to see one of the nicest fields in the UP.
Yeah, like I said, the support is incredible to help you guys get to where you have been and are this season. Over 500, like I mentioned, heading into the state tournament. You're bringing a good umpiring crew that you're familiar with that will be kind to the Blues this weekend?
Well, for the state tournament, the umpire coordinator, I believe he's from downstate. I think it's Mr. York. So there's two gentlemen from downstate, Mike Pankow and another gentleman from Gladstone, and then Joe McDonald and Zach Sorrell. It's a 6-man crew for the whole weekend, so it's kind of split across, a mix of downstate reps and some local reps, just so it's, we don't have that biased look.
I get you. It's always good to mention that you need officials for high school sports. You can sign up on MHSAA.com as we get ready for the high school football season. You use more people willing to volunteer and really enjoy some of not only baseball, football, basketball, volleyball. It's a great way to get involved. And this weekend, I'm sure those guys will do a great job. Be kind to you over there at third base. You don't have to say too much. That would be nice, right?
I hope so. Yep. So. Should be a good weekend. Yep, we're looking forward to it, and hope everyone can come out and help support Post 44 and the boys that have been playing all summer.
And we're looking forward to it as well. That's Mark Pantti, the manager of the Marquette Blues, getting ready for the Legion State Tournament in Marquette this weekend. Marquette competing as well as the Gladstone Indians coming up from Delta County to represent the UP, and we'll see what happens. Maybe the Blues pull out another state title, but we are sure to be entertained by all the baseball there at Haley Field this weekend. Mark, thanks so much for the time.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.